I had a start date and they called me up and said, Renee, I'm going to run this by you. I've already told them you won't do this, but I told them I'd ask you anyway. We have this opportunity for you to go to Japan for 3 months and consult over there. It would be a week after you start your first day at work. We're going to send you out to this training, and then you're going to go to Japan for 3 months. You're not 30, so you're going to have to lie about your age. And all this, he's like, but no pressure. He said, because I've already told them you won't do this. I came back and I'm like, I'll do it. And I don't know why I said that at the time. Like I said, I don't know if it's because they said I wouldn't do it that bothered me, but I thought, what at this point do I have to lose? Everyone makes those lists, the pros and cons, and why should I do something? Why not do something? You're going to survive anything. I don't think until later I realized how much getting through those 3 months, how much confidence it gave me in dealing with new situations.
Welcome to the NarrowSpaces podcast, a limited engagement masterclass where leaders are invited to share their lessons learned and experiences in navigating those narrow spaces of work and life. We are creating a true masterclass in leadership. When the space between work and life is narrow, balance is impossible. I want to encourage you to be brave enough to lead in the narrow spaces. I've invited Renee DeMay to join us for today's discussion. Renee is a distinguished global leader with over 30 years of experience in go-to-market strategies, operations, and business optimization. She began her career at smaller private companies and was followed by impactful years at PTC and ANSYS. Both are well-respected innovation and global technology companies doing incredible work. Renee has held various executive roles and contributed to the strategic direction and success of these giants. In her work, Renee has collaborated closely with the CEO and leadership team to define strategy and establish effective operations. Her flexibility has allowed her to lead critical projects, including the company's response to the COVID-19 crisis and leading her organizations through the narrow spaces of work and life on a practical, tangible, and daily basis. Previously, as the Vice President of ANSYS Customer Excellence, ACE, she managed a global technical team of over 800 professionals. Under her leadership, the ACE team absorbed 10 acquisitions and achieved remarkable sales growth and customer satisfaction scores. As a leader, Renee demonstrates what she lives. Renee's committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion and is passionate about nurturing the next generation of leaders. She serves on the Penn State University's Alumni Association Council, the Board of Directors at the South Hills Interfaith Movement, and is the executive sponsor of the ANSYS Pride Alliance. Renee earned her bachelor's degree in business logistics from Penn State University, and she is someone that I truly admire. I can't wait for you to meet her. Here's Renee. Renee, I'm so excited to talk with you today, and I have been watching you as a leader and getting to know you as a leader. What's something that most people would be surprised to know about you as a leader?
And as a leader, I think there's a couple things. One is, and someone asked me this question, I remember distinctly, we were driving from Austin to Houston, and it was someone who had been on my team and said, Renee, how did you plan out your career? And I was like, there was no plan. And they're like, no, you had to have said you wanted to do this. And I'm like, no, there really isn't. And there never has been. It was more as opportunities presented themselves and that I took advantage of them and tried to make the decisions that best fit me at the time. Yeah. There were opportunities that I passed on because I knew they weren't right. I had an opportunity to go to China and they wanted me to move, but I had a 13-year-old dog and my mom had just been diagnosed with leukemia and I couldn't imagine leaving. Wow. And tried to convince them to let me do this China thing part-time, like go there, come back, go and come back. It didn't work out and I didn't take the role, but that was something I passed on. that I really, for a long time, wanted international, in-country experience, but I knew it wasn't the right time and the right thing for me, whereas other things have presented themselves and, the timing has been right. And as I face this current transition I have coming up, I keep trying to remember that and trying not to plan it and trying to believe that the right things will come along at the right times and I'll know what they are.
Wow, that takes a lot of courage. And I think, demonstrating the courage of saying no to something that's not the right time, because you were literally in the narrow spaces of that work-life experience. But saying no takes so much courage, but also saying yes to the opportunity that hasn't yet shown up. That's a level of courage. Okay, so as a woman who leads with compassion and courage, how do you get through a day with your internal pace of, okay, I'm leading with courage, but I also have a huge drive. Just looking at your history, you have a tremendous leadership capacity and talent capacity. So how do you manage that?
It's difficult at times. It's difficult in the slow times, and it's difficult to not. What does my sister say? Because we're very similar. We're the oldest and the youngest. We don't create problems to solve.
Oh,
And
that's wise.
And so it is really staying focused on what the outcomes are, staying focused on what your priorities are, what your values are, and driving towards those. And at times, and recognizing there's ebbs and flows, that everything can't be 120% all the time, even though at times I think that's what I want. I think as I've gotten older, I recognize that's not always what I need or what the situation needs. And so it's really trying to find, I don't like the word balance, but it's really seasons of work, seasons of life. And how do you bring the right part of yourself to what's needed to the situation?
I love that. And it's that idea of, how do I show up authentically and fully integrated into demands of today?
Yeah.
I think you and I have this in common where we love work.
Yes.
Like, it is so much fun to work.
Mm-hmm.
But you and your sister have some wisdom here in not creating problems to solve. I think that's a good takeaway for anyone.
Yes.
Well, okay, so with that love of work and that wisdom of not creating problems to solve, when do you find yourself as the most productive in these busy times, but maybe get a little more granular?
When do I find myself most productive? I think that there are a few things. One, I know, like, when you talk about granular, mornings are infinitely better for me than evenings. Afternoons I'm okay. Evening, not so great.
Wait, do you go to bed at like 8 o'clock too? Because I go to bed at 8.
9. Yeah. 9. We try to make it to 9.
That's a great goal.
But then again, I was up at 4 this morning. So
same. Yes. Okay, so we're on the same page.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think, for me, I know physically and mentally mornings are better. I also find, I hate to use the words under pressure, but maybe time constrained. I will put off, and I will drive myself crazy putting something off that if I sat down and did it would take me half an hour. So I'm better when I've got more to do, more pressing on me, and not in a negative way, but just busy. And I don't mean busy work. And that's where, to me, when I can be focused on outcomes and driving change, some result, hitting that goal. And it's not always, I don't know what I want to say. It's not always a defined goal, but making progress. I think for me, progress and improvement really drive me. Like, I'm never happy with where I'm at, which is probably not always a good thing, but it's how do you improve? How do you improve that process? How do you improve this outcome? How do we do better the next time? What did we learn? Those types of things.
I think that reflects in your career, that continuous process improvement and progress development. You've been able to lead global teams and doing really intense hard work. As a woman in leadership, that's not always the easiest path to take. And so often when we pursue perfection, I think there's a little bit of a letdown or a frustration. So your viewpoint on progress is just incredible in all of the work of progress you've done.
Well, but I think that if you would have talked to me 20 years ago, I probably wouldn't have had the same definition. I think I would have been more harder on myself, harder on my teams, harder on expecting that perfection.
Yeah.
And over time, learning the grace of imperfection and learning how you, that's not always the answer. It's how do we improve? How do we learn from it? How do we admit when it went bad and why it went bad? And how do you do better the next time? And I think that for me certainly came with age and time.
And again, it goes back to courage, because it takes a lot of courage to admit mistake or failure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. But it's and that's why I said I don't think 20 years ago I had that. I had some courage. I had courage in certain things, but to be able to be truly self-aware and self-reflective has been a journey. Certainly not something I came out of college with, or even out of, I'd say, my first maybe 10 years of work or 15 years of work.
Yeah.
If you've been listening to Narrow Spaces and thinking about how to better navigate the tight spots in work and life, then it's time to check out Brave Women Project. BWP isn't a networking group. It's a powerful community where professional women do life together. With members across the nation and around the world and a mix of virtual and in-person experiences, BWP creates space for women ready to rise and thrive. If you're seeking support, connection, and real growth, Brave Women Project has a space just for you. Visit us at bwp.life.
What are some of those moments when you think back of your career and just your life? Because work and life are so intimately connected. And I always say, business is really personal. It's one of the most personal things we do. We spend so much time in business.
Yes.
When you think back in the 30 years of your really storied career with highs and lows and those moments where courage was the result of difficulty, are there any lessons that stand out for you that you're just really glad you learned, even though they were really hard?
One, and I don't know that it was that hard, but it was the first big one I made about my career that maybe wasn't to standard or what people expected. I had been in manufacturing for about 10 years and went into IT and into consulting. It was my first job into consulting. My CIO at a previous company recruited me, said, I think you'd be really good at this. It was a long time. It was in the late 90s. And so I was stepping into this whole new career, whole different kind of work. And I had a start date, and they called me up and said, Renee, I'm going to run this by you. I've already told them you won't do this, but I told them I'd ask you anyway. And so I don't know if part of that annoyed me or that they've already decided for me. But he said, we have this opportunity for you to go to Japan for 3 months and consult over there. It would be a week after you start your first day at work. We're going to send you out to this training, and then you're going to go to Japan for 3 months. You also have to understand that, you're not 30, so you're going to have to lie about your age and all this. And so he's like, but no pressure. He said, because I've already told them you won't do this. And I came back and I'm like, I'll do it. And I was like, I don't know why I said that at the time. Like I said, I don't know if it's because they said I wouldn't do it that bothered me, but I thought, what at this point do I have to lose? I didn't have kids. I didn't have, I had a husband, but I just was like, I'm doing it. And I often reflect, and especially when I talk to kids in college and stuff, I'm like, everyone makes those lists, the pros and cons, and why should I do something? And I've always, ever since that thought, and as I reflected on it, why not do something? You never know all the positives or all the negatives. And so at this point, short of death, like, I'm not into things where I could die. Like, I'm not going to go bungee jumping. I'm not jumping out of a plane.
Relatable.
Yes, I'm not doing those things. But otherwise, you're going to survive anything. And so, I went, and I don't think I understood till later the confidence it gave me. I mean, I went to Japan by myself. No one picked me up. No one told me. They're like, here's your hotel, here's the office, show up at this time, and good luck.
Wow.
And so I don't think until later I realized how much getting through those 3 months, how much confidence it gave me in dealing with new situations, with different cultures, different languages, all of that. And I think it really was part of the beginning of one of my mentors and I, he and I say we are similar in that we're experience junkies, that, we crave the new and the different. That always, as I look back, drove me more than title or financial. I figured those things always would follow, but it was always the experience. And so for me anymore, when I look at things, short of death, I will say a yes to about anything.
I mean, you said yes to this.
I did.
mean, oh my gosh.
And believe me, there were days when I was like, ooh, this could be death.
We got you. Well, I think you have great advice. The last couple of minutes, everything you said, I hope there's people writing it down, because for people who are purpose seekers when it comes to work and life, that wisdom of say yes to anything short of death, that's brilliant. And it also is a really productive way to get out of your own way sometimes. And that decision paralysis, analysis paralysis. And so I think that it's definitely carried you in your career, just thinking about the various roles that you've had and the various leadership that you've demonstrated. I mean, your work during the COVID-19 crisis and helping your team and your company navigate what to do next.
Yeah.
That took guts and wisdom and strategy. What are your thoughts on how you showed up for work on those days?
Well, I think, that was, when you think about things where leadership mattered the most, COVID-19 was unprecedented. Nobody had ever experienced in our lifetimes anything like it. And we all went into it thinking, oh, this is going to be 2 weeks, 2 months, and we're going to be done. And, we were very fortunate to have a great team around us, and the respect and trust of each other to be silly and to be, I cringe very much when I think back to the videos we made. The things that we did, just to try to connect with everybody as everybody was dealing with their issues and had home issues and kid issues and parents and lots of different pulls. And then you had this thing that was work. And I felt super fortunate. I didn't have little kids at home trying to do schoolwork. I can't even imagine that's what so I was like, wow, I have adults in the house. We have wine. We have dogs. We're good, But it really, the trust and respect of my peers and of our CEO gave us the ability to then connect and reach out. And we knew at that point communication was going to be the key to getting us through. Yeah. Especially early on, we kind of let the business stuff not dissolve, but it wasn't the forefront. It was, how's everyone doing? How are you connecting? How are you keeping your teams connected? And continuing that communication pattern from the top. Yeah. And both from the serious to the silly. And we certainly did enough silly things that we were all trying to show that we were all dealing with it in our own ways.
Yeah. That human-centered leadership that your organization demonstrated, that from CEO through everyone, and just watching that, there's a lot of really positive data to support that as a business practice that is profitable and successful. And I always think about, if you're a business leader who's watching this conversation, thinking about, okay, well, COVID was one thing, how do we continue that? You can't just spray people down with the hose and say, now you're soaked with culture. You have to have a consistent drop.
Yes.
What are some of the things that you've seen as a leader in your 30 years that are great practices for building that emotional currency?
Yeah. I think the consistency, consistency without a doubt, and it's consistency in messaging. And I'll give you an example. I'll use ANSYS as an example. When Ajay came in, he talked about we were a very structured culture at that time. Not very structured, very fractured is what I would say. And not fractured, but we had come together through acquisition. And so when I would meet people, they'd say, well, I came from this acquisition or I came from this acquisition. And he brought us together to be, and we finish every meeting. He goes through a set of numbers, and the last number is always 1 because we're one ANSYS. And so that, I think, and that we had a consistent cadence of communication, we had a consistent cadence of, and transparency. I think the level of, once you build that consistency, it also has to be transparent as much as you can be, and building that trust at all levels within the organization, to rely that the decisions you're making, even if someone doesn't fully understand them, knows they're being made with our values in mind, with the best intent.
Wow.
I actually, one of the practices we do have are roundtables. And so every month, HR comes up with, I cycle through all the different regions, but they'll pick 12 people to get on the phone with me, and we spend an hour. They can send questions in ahead of time. And I just did one yesterday. And one of the things someone asked was, what do you wish people understood or had more appreciation for about how you make decisions? And I said, well, the one thing, having watched Ajay up close for 7 years and our leadership, is the scope of things that you need to consider. While as an employee, you're like, well, what about me? But at the top and as a leader, you're thinking about your customers, your employees, if you're public, your stockholders, your investors, what's happening in the geopolitical realm. You have all these other constituencies and things to take in mind. And so that when someone makes that decision, they're really looking at the scope of everything. And while it may not make sense or seem like it's to your best outcome, from a company perspective, it's best. Right. And so that is one of the other practices. All of our leadership do monthly roundtables with not your employees, with employees from around the world and around the company.
And again, it's a global company. I mean, you drop the name. It's a massive company that's doing tremendous innovation work and technology work. And I mean, it's amazing that your senior leadership values that connection and that feedback model so seriously that it's a monthly behavior of leaders. Yeah. What a great takeaway, and what a significant share that you brought to the table today. Yeah. When you think about that narrow space between work and life, and you think about your own life and the way that you've navigated and are navigating the narrow spaces, I noticed one of the behaviors that's just consistent in your leadership is that you're consistently looking for opportunities for equity for employees to also have a chance to breathe in that narrow space between work and life. Tell us a little bit about what your experience is at this part of your career in the narrow space of work and life. Yeah.
I think, when you think about that and how you navigate it, I think one of the foundational things is that it's not transactional. I talk to people and people are like, well, I did this and I want this. And to me, that's not how you build that. And it's really about building that relationship. Both, obviously, you think about your home and your family and you understand that relationship. But I think at work, it's how do you build that relationship of trust, of reliability, of responsiveness, that when you need to take from that bank, it's there. Yeah. And how do you, at the times you need to make the investments at home, you manage this, and how do you, when you need to make the investments at work, they know that you're going to do that and that you can be relied on. I was just talking to one of my team members on my way up here, and we were talking about, things are a little slow right now. So I'm like, breathe, take the time. There's we aren't expecting anything. I know you expect it of yourself, but right now is the time to breathe. So take advantage of it, because we don't always get that.
Yeah.
And so it's important when the opportunities present themselves that you take advantage of it, but that you've also built that trust and that relationship so that if all of a sudden something changed, I know I could call that team member in 10 minutes and go, okay, fire drill, it's all off, I need this. And they would be there because they know that it goes both ways. And I think that that's really important.
I love that. And again, as a leader, for a leader to voice that, it just means so much. I remember a role that I had previously during COVID, actually, when, it was the first time that a lot of people stopped working in an office and had to work in their home space. And so that narrow space became really even fuzzy, not just narrow, but fuzzy. And she and I would do a morning catch up, and she'd say, okay, well, go take a walk today, because I know you're going to have a good idea afterwards. And to have that kind of latitude and trust from my employer to tell me, go take a walk, go enjoy some fresh air, go get out of the house of the little kids and get some fresh air. That was really influential for me, and actually helped me understand what integrated living was. I realized, wow, the way that my brain works requires a little bit of activity.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the years since COVID, there's been a push for return to office. There's been needs that have changed in organizations. Mm-hmm. What is different about the way that you work today than it was prior to COVID?
We were very office-based prior to COVID. I mean, if you would have asked us 2 weeks before COVID happened, could we close a quarter? Could we do earnings? Could we release product without people being in the office? It would have been a resounding no. And so we go through COVID, we have 2 of the best years we've ever had, and then the return to office conversation starts. And it was really hard, and we have not had a mandate. We have not changed anything because we felt like we couldn't, in good conscience, stand in front of our employees and say, yeah, you just had these 2 great years. Now come and sit in the office because we think that's better. Like, we're going to do better. And so we haven't done that. What we've started to recognize, and certainly with the transaction coming up, we haven't moved forward. I think it would have been a different situation. But we have recognized that there are situations where you need something to keep the culture moving. Mm-hmm. It was easy for everybody, not easy, but to keep things going in COVID when you have existing relationships, you have those channels. So we realized for new employees, we've got to do better, and we've got to find a way to get them connected, and all those little things that used to happen subtly in the office, how do you help those happen virtually now? We don't have the recipe for it. We have not figured that out totally, but it's something that for us, we felt was important to figure out. And what were the moments that matter to employees? And how do we make sure we still celebrate them and recognize them, and not in one-offs, but in groups, and keep people connected? So from a company standpoint, we aren't working that differently than we did during COVID. I think some people have wanted to be back in the office, and they have that choice, and others have wanted to stay remote. And believe me, it is one of the first questions I get, whether I'm at a company meeting or doing roundtables, is, are we ever going to change that? Because I think it feels empowering to the team. It feels like we trust them and give them that latitude to make the right decisions for themselves and their lives.
Wow, I feel like everyone needs to hear this part of this interview, because your success, the success of your organization, speaks volumes. And the health and wellness of your employees is so intimately connected to their performance and achievement. So, I mean, I'm like blown away, and also excited that you have this incredible, really living case study to share. It's powerful. And I think that there is something, obviously not every organization has the leadership model that you all have. But again, looking at the commitment of your leaders to have those roundtable conversations, that is a significant draw for being able to understand the needs of employees. I'm so impressed and excited you shared that. So when in your coaching of team members and your coaching of people you mentor, even in those conversations. I love that you on the way up here even gave some advice to one of, your teammates, but when the narrow spaces just feel particularly narrow, when you feel that squeeze, what do you do to reset and refocus?
Go outside. You talk about walking, and for me, that is really, getting outside, getting more perspective, because I usually feel that tightness when I've been sitting in a chair or behind a desk for hours or days.
Yep.
And so it's getting outside, exercising, meditating, but it's also then trying to figure out why it's feeling narrow. Is it the stuff at home that's causing it? Is it the stuff at work? And then trying to focus and prioritize based on what the real issue is. And what of it can I control? And that's the other part. That's the other part, getting outside. What can you, I have to stop myself because I go walk and it's like, okay, you can't think of more than 3 things because I can't remember more than 3 things. Mm-hmm. And so that really helps me get refocused and settles the anxiety and the adrenaline rush.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is real for you, but since we're both walkers, think day walkers, I used to send myself voice memos and emails while I was walking. And I was like, Holly, you're missing all of the benefit of nature and you're missing it. So I actually had to de-escalate myself on walks where now I'm like, I can have one thought that I carry with me home, but I'm now resisting the sending of an email to myself. Oh. I don't know how, you got any tricks or tips?
No, mine is I've limited myself to 3 and usually I remember 2.
Yeah.
But yeah. Because I didn't want to, I could be very much in that camp. And I've tried
are
to,
you a list maker
yes.
too?
Let's
list. Check them all
Here,
up.
that was one of my things, lists. Yes, that lists help me think about everything that's truly on the plate and get focused.
Yeah. Well, you said something really important too. What was for you and what was not for you? What was something you could control? What was something that you really knew in your heart of hearts you were not in control of?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that. Okay, we know what we can control. We can, again, we love working.
Yes.
We can figure things out. We don't create problems we need to solve, but we can figure it out.
Yes.
But on that list, that is truly not your control, truly not something you can influence. Give us some thoughts from the wise, brave one on that.
I feel like this is what I've been talking about for the past 18 months as we've been in this time period to the acquisition closing, is just trying to focus on business as usual. I'm so tired of saying that. I finally looked it up. What could I say differently? And so my new thing is status quo, is just focus on the things that we have in front of us, that doing that, no matter what happens on the things you can't, on the uncontrollables, you'll be in the best situation possible, whether that's work or home. Focus on what you've got at hand. Keep, and it's almost like narrowing your focus. Don't let yourself get too broad, because when you get too broad, sometimes you get into the uncontrollables. Yeah. And so really get intentional and focus on, if you have to focus on the next half an hour or the next hour, or these are the 3 things today, or this is the week, whatever time frame gives you that comfort, focus on that and stay as in that moment and in the present as you can to try to not get caught in the uncontrollables.
I think that's really great wisdom for at work. And, in my work, I use different assessment tools. And one of the tools that I use is Clifton Strengths. And there's a list of 34 different strengths. And as you started talking about that, my mind went to the people who lead with futuristic, who have to be ideating, who have to be dreaming. And I had a client recently who is extremely talented in this area. And he's kind of in a situation like you described. Like there's a status quo that you got to keep because there's other moving pieces. And my advice to him was get a hobby.
Yeah. Yes.
Really find something that lights you up, that you can invest that incredible energy towards.
Yeah.
Because there's something, and again, we love working, but when you can see progress and achievement, it actually elevates your motivation.
Yes. I clean.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about that.
I clean.
It's fun.
Yes.
I know.
And
Same.
huge sense of accomplishment.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So in a past life, I worked in nonprofit. I don't know if I ever told you this. I worked in the nonprofit space. And with nonprofit work, you plant a seed, you don't see for 30 years what's ever going to happen,
Right.
especially the kind of work I did. So I ended up going to massage therapy school. Okay, this is nuts, truly nuts, but I'm an entrepreneur. We've talked about this. I'm an entrepreneur. So I went to massage therapy school so I could get credentialed, and I had a business. And the reason I needed to do this business was because in 1 hour, I could see a difference in a human being. In 1 hour, they would come in with pain and ache or stress, and in 1 hour, they looked different, they felt different.
Right.
I could use that to go back to the grueling work of nonprofit work. That's like
never
cleaning.
seeing- yeah.
Yes, it's like cleaning. You organize a shelf, you feel
Yeah.
better. You get it. I mean, and this is, I've heard other things like a lot of people like gardening for that reason. And I mean, this is good. Okay. So so we're stacking the wisdom of Renee today. There's a lot of wisdom here. Be encouraged about things that you're not going to die when you do. Very wise. Very wise. Stay connected. Have that consistency in the behaviors. Do what you can do for today.
Yeah.
Manage the anxiety. Clean a freaking room.
Yeah.
I mean, these are good things. And don't take too much with you on your walk. These are really good things. So when you see a colleague or a team member experiencing the squeeze, how do you address it with them? Maybe not in the helpful coaching side, like go take a walk, but what about when you need to kind of redirect them or help them understand the opportunity to show up differently? How do you do that?
Yeah.
Because your leadership style really has navigated so many different things.
Yeah. That's one of the things we've talked about lately is how are you showing up? And how, while things have been difficult and we're all so comfortable with each other, I don't want to say people have gotten sloppy. That's probably too big of a word, but we take each other for granted at this point. And so it's really a reminder of reminding people of the impact they have on others and how they show up impacts their teams. When I'm talking to leaders of leaders and leaders of people, how you show up, they're following you because, and that's something that I think people forget. And when things get tight, they get, as anyone does, you're worried about yourself. You're worried about how it's going to affect your family, what's happening, and what things do you need to do. And you need to, I think it's always a good reminder to step back and have someone say to you, hey, it's kind of, you're not quite yourself. Your stress is showing, the anxiety is showing. I know that's not you. And, what do you need to get there because people are watching? And I think that in times of when things get tight, remembering that people are watching you and taking their clues from you. And I don't mean that in you have to be perfect or you have to be sunshiny and smiley, but it has to be authentic, but it also can't, the one term we've been using, drop below the line.
Yeah.
You can't go below the line in, things you say, your attitude, how you're being perceived. It needs to stay above the line. And so what do you need to do to get yourself? And so that's kind of one of the terms we've been using is, I see you going below the line. What do you need? How do we get you back above? Because it matters. And it matters not just for you, but for the whole team.
What a gracious way to address that. That's a really gracious way. And it's sometimes the temptation is to be super direct and think you're going to get to the finish line that way. But a really human-centered leader knows that that's not always going to have the long-term impact. And so it seems like it's just a really gracious way to reframe and rephrase for people.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Wow.
Yeah. We felt that it worked because it could work at any level and work peer to peer. It doesn't have to be a leader telling you this, but we've felt that it was important that we hold each other accountable, and that's the way we've been doing it.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, you've had an incredible career. So when you think about the best work of your life, how do you describe it?
Do you want a situation or do you want to? I've thought of different things.
I want everything because
So,
you
oh
could
my
just
gosh,
keep
you want
talking, Renee.
everything.
You could
I know,
keep
I
talking.
could keep talking. I mean, so one of the ways I think of when I think of the best work of my life, I think about who the leaders that I've had the privilege to work with. And one of the places I worked, we talked about grouping skills into identify, build, and drive. And you talk about identify, and I am a build and drive person. I can identify, like, I'm not going to trip over the curb. I can see within a situation what's happening and even a little further out, but I am not futuristic.
Yeah.
Any way, shape,
Me
don't-
neither.
and have no qualms about that. But I've had the privilege to be paired with two really great leaders who are. And what worked was that I could take the build and especially the drive side and manage all that while they got to be the big thinkers and the big idea. And so when I think of some of the best work, it's in that situation where, I was working with a leader that we had such great respect for what the talents that each of us brought, and that made each of us so much better and stronger.
Wow.
So that would be one. The second would be the teams that I've had in the past. Teams where we were focused on an outcome, and, teams of whether it was 5 people or 100 people. I was just in Starbucks this morning, and I had someone come up to me and introduce themselves, and they're like on one of my teams, but they're in North Carolina, and I've never actually met them. But, this person, like, because of the work we've done, because of being present and on phone calls, I was so happy that he did. And so to me, that's important, that when you can build those relationships and that work, even levels down, even far removed, that you've built that comfort level. So I think that's really important. And when I think about the actual work, right now, the work leading the integration, trying to keep our company focused on what the finish line is, how we keep people engaged, how do we keep people focused. Our attrition has not, gone up. People are seeing it through. I think doing that and keeping people motivated, and through our updates, through our transparency, has been some of the best work, I think.
I love it.
Lots of different angles, but the people are the important part.
And that's another leadership behavior. The people are the important part. And when a leader really is committed to that through the length of their career, they can look back similar to you and share those moments.
Yeah.
Now, you've mentioned a couple times that there's transition happening and that you're
Yes.
working to really bring your people to this transition point.
Yeah.
So what's this transition point looking like for you as you think about the incredible career you've had? 30 years of leading people, leading innovation, leading process, leading enhancement, leading results. You're the drive, you've got that. So as you think about this next space, it's maybe not as narrow as it once was. You
Right.
might have found a wide space.
Yes.
Like that great Dixie Chicks song, Wide Open
Yes.
Spaces. We all know it. Yes. We all sang it in 2000. What's this space like for you right now?
It's a good question, because I think since, for the past year, I've been trying to explore, and you and I have talked about it.
Yeah.
And what did I say to you the one time? I want time.
Yeah.
I need to, I've always felt like there have been so many demands on my time that I want time. And I think that I've also been trying to convince myself that when the right thing will happen at the right time. I have a very good support system, and she reminds me that, the conversations will happen when they're supposed to happen. If they didn't happen today, it's not the right thing. Yeah. And so just trying to be, kind to myself. I've committed that I'm not rushing into something just to be busy, to stay busy.
That's right.
And so trying to figure out and discern, I wouldn't call it retirement, but I don't know what it is. And I think I'm trying to continue to give myself the grace to figure out what it is.
Well, when it comes to grace, you've already demonstrated so much with the people you lead, the grace and the space that you give them. I have no doubt that you're going to give that to yourself, but the gift of time that you gave us today and the conversation is so significant. The wisdom you shared is so significant. And I am just truly grateful for the wisdom you shared, the life experience, and your leadership. And so, is there anything else you wanted to share with us before I gush about you even more?
No, thank you. This has been wonderful. And this is, when you think of what would someone not think of you as a leader, these things stress me out. Everyone's always like, no, you must no, like even my roundtables, I'm like half dreading, half petrified going in. I'm like, my gosh, Renee, there are 12 employees. What are they going to do? But I've thoroughly enjoyed it and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you reaching out a year ago to have these conversations, and invaluable for me. And the timing was right.
Absolutely. And you know what? Those conversations, when timing is right, the narrow spaces, they flow.
Yep.
And we made a lot of space for each other. And so I appreciate this today. And I just hope that as people reflect on the leadership that you have demonstrated, the stories you've told, the wisdom you've shared, your experiences, that they harness a little bit of your courage, because that's one of those throughputs that you have shared in your career. And so thank you so much, Renee.
Thank you.
And as they say, that's a wrap. Oh, that was so beautiful. Oh my. Thanks for joining us in the narrow spaces of work and life. What do? I'm on a mission to help people to have the best work of their lives. I help leaders do good. I help managers be good. And I help employees feel good. And when leaders are good, employees are engaged, energized, effective. And together, we get to live the life we deserve. Be sure to check out the show notes for more information on where to connect with our guests and sponsors, and experience all things Narrow Spaces at narrowspaces.com, where you can gain access to this episode, subscriber extras, and more.